Okay,
Hello.
welcome. Hello. Yeah. Uh, what should we discuss this week?
What a start.
Mm.
Um, I'll be
Amazing.
honest. Yeah, I don't. What's been going on this week? Have you guys read up anything fun? Any SVB part two going on?
Chat.
To be honest, I think like sharing a little bit of our experience, just because this was a very like boring week, I think in terms of news, because the SUV thing didn't prove to have much legs. It seems okay. It seems tech
Yeah.
is not dead, at least for now. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about use this opportunity to talk about our experiences, something related to what we were doing, and kind of our thoughts, our feedback exchange a little bit.
I think the only lesson I got from the SVB thing and then where it ties in with me is that you just have to like think for yourself if you're a founder, right? Like not everything that everybody says is 100% correct. There's always like not just skepticism, but like you kind of just pave your own way, right? Like that's what you have to like realize. I do want to say, like, I don't know if we're detracting. Maybe this is the next point that we can get into, but like a lot of people are like freaking out over on Twitter about like how GPT-4 just got released in beta, and like everyone's freaking out. Like there's pretty much two camps of thought where it's like, okay, all of our products that we're making now as like indie hackers is just trash. Or, oh, wait, we can now do what like a giant company could have done like years ago, but now it's just, maybe like three people in a basement, like drinking Red Bull, and we can we can sit back and actually like do things that are way more productive because of the AI. But I don't know if that's a like point. That was just like recent news. For me, it just kind of comes down to like anything that you learn or even watch on Twitter or anything. It's just you have to think for yourself. You have to make your own stance of what you think is to be true, and even then have like skepticism.
Yeah, actually, just to expand on that too, something that we might have touched on it earlier too, but one of the biggest issues we've had with Groupsay, just the three of us, was we went to Web Summit with our very shitty Squarespace product, if I'm not mistaken. And what we ended up doing was we talked with all of these investors, all of these potential partners, and they kept saying, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's nice. It's great." And then some of them would actually give the feedback, "Oh, we think you should do this. We think you should do that." And I think we just try to please everyone. And at the end of the day, if you try to please everyone, you please nobody, because we made so many pivots. We just kind of went off what one person said that we couldn't really stick to our guns. And I think that kind of fucked us. So, kind of going off what Thomas said, I think we have to be kind of like independent. You have to be a little bit like steadfast in your thinking and just building any product, because there's going to be a lot of opinions thrown at you. And you have to decide which ones are actually valid, which ones can you actually now pursue, and which ones are kind of maybe not trying to fuck you, but maybe which ones aren't the best fit for you. And that's something that's not honestly just with like building up a company, but that's with doing anything. Like a lot of like small projects I'm even working on too. Lots of opinions going on. You have to really understand which ones are valid, which ones are not, which ones contribute to the end goal. And it's all about you to kind of like remain, I don't know what the terminology is, but I'm saying steadfast, I guess, but sticking to your guns.
Yeah. What about you, George? What do you think like so far?
I mean, on the Coop side, I couldn't agree more. It's That's exactly right. You also, it's never the intention to like fuck you over, unless
Mm-hmm.
it's very extreme cases. 99.9% is just like actual feedback. You have to just choose what exactly you're building, focusing on your niche. As soon as you take everyone's feedback, you don't have your competitive advantage of doing something you know best, or at least the
Mhm.
problem that you feel the most, whatever it is. So you have to contain that competitive advantage, which means being niche, at least to an extent at first. Um, but in terms of the Chat GPT news, I think we're going to hear a lot more, like, because there's some geometrical progression in terms of how good the AI gets. Like maybe the next big news on ChatGPT is going to be like in 2 weeks, and then like in 3 days after that, and then it's just gonna, the span between the GPTs is gonna decrease. But what is a bit worrying is that you've probably all heard about the data is the new oil. It's a bit of like a
Yeah.
cheesy. In reality, there's more similarities to it than just like oil is a commodity, data is a commodity. In reality, like it's very worrying that there's only one big player right now. And the way that ChatGPT works, like you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that part of how they trained the model is that they had those outsourced facilities in Africa. I think it was Ethiopia, where they had like thousands of people hired, where they did work for 1 hour, $1 an hour, which is like a pretty low pay, in order to train the algorithm. And a lot of it included graphical content and like vulgar language. And a lot of the people, like half of the people left, they just found like new workers and they filed a lot of lawsuits. But it's an outsourced firm of OpenAI. It wasn't really OpenAI itself. So I don't think it has legal implications. But it's a bit worrying where it's like usage of very cheap labor, plus there's only one company on the market who has a competitive advantage. And the competitive advantage comes from training that algorithm using that cheap labor, where it's like, you know, it could be a monopolistic concern in the near future. You just don't know any other players.
That's a very big concern of just a lot of the big tech companies right now. Is just they have so much data, they have so much of this oil that it's impossible for any of these big players, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, to ever fall. And that's actually a very real concern because, I mean, like right now the government is still like kind of stepping in a weird way. Like they're constantly like shaking their fingers at these big tech companies because at the end of the day, like Google, for example, is monopolistic, right? Like the Google searches, I don't know what the percentage is, but like 93% of the world uses them. It's just complete dominance. And at the end of the day, they have all this data where I don't think they'll ever fall. And OpenAI is on that path to become one of these massive players. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. Like they make great products, but do we really want a few monopolistic players as opposed to maybe like 20 years ago when we had dozens more, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I understand the concern that these companies wouldn't die per se, but it also enables a lot of like new companies to exist built on like pretty much this baseline material, right? So like an example here is we were to do CoopSite today, like starting today, right? We had a struggle in CoopSite to really explore partnerships, not just through like general use case, but also like scraping like that whole distance matrix of like, oh, well, this company plus this company could do partnerships of this caliber, right? That goes away now because there are models that you can now leverage very clearly to construct those types of results, right? Like our company essentially, as if we were to do CoopSite today, would have been like way more viable and like probably easier to do, right? Than it would have done in like 2018. So like it's like a toss up because on one hand I understand like now you're reliant on a OpenAI and the results that they give for maybe like our partnership generation, right? If we were to do that, but at the same time, like it's such a wide scoping interest for the AI to be used in multiple ways that we can essentially like make a new product out of a product that is good. The question just becomes, does that mean that every product that is generated via AI like has zero moat to be constructed? Because like there are a ton of apps right now that are coming out in the market, like photoshopping AI stuff, right? They're all like literally the same service. Then they're all generated off the same exact product stuff, and everyone's freaking out because it literally takes another competitor like probably like 1 hour of just hard work to just construct the same like feature set as another person, right? There's like nothing separating them. There's no real value prop aside from the baseline. It's just all wrapper material.
It's, you know, what the analogy is. It's like if it's like 2007, 2008, and you use AWS, like it's just cloud. It's just cloud. It's just, it makes it easier. Yeah. And like, I guess for a moment, you're going to be doing a lot better than your competitor that like has their servers like, you know, like down half the time. But in reality, everybody's just going to start using AWS and that won't be a competitive advantage anymore. Like in hindsight.
Yeah.
So this could be also that case where everybody adopts it. It's just a baseline. But I think the really big companies are already using some pretty advanced algorithms, and for sure they have access to it earlier. And then everything is just going to come to baseline where you have AI by default.
Yeah, that's what I think would happen. I mean, right now everybody's like, "Oh, I want to see how the hype will die down and then all of this will go away." I don't think it would go
No.
away. That's the thing. Like
You gotta
certainly a lot of
incorporate it,
yeah, a lot of
just like
companies
with
will
cloud.
die, right?
Yeah.
Because like amongst all of like maybe these like 10 services, they're exactly the same, perfect competition. Like there's only going to be so many people that like would want to spend on a product and they'll just choose the quote unquote best out of it, right? So even if all of them have the same features, it just comes down to implementation of like the actual wrapping, like how does it look, how does it feel, that sort of stuff. And then those are the companies that would probably survive. But like out of maybe 10 of them, I could probably say that maybe two at best would survive, like over long term. Yeah.
Wait, so what do you mean by that in terms of like the wrapper around it? Do you mean like specifically like how it's being utilized? I talk about the
So like
design
imagine
aspect,
that there's
the
like
delivery.
10 Coop sites, right? And we're all
Right.
like focusing on how to do like partnerships between companies
Mm,
and we're establishing partnerships. But then like there's going to be only probably one guy at the end of the day after this bloodbath, right? That will basically be the go-to, like, oh, their partnerships and how they connected things were the best out of all of these, even though the services are rendered the same, right? There's still like
mm,
going to be, okay, this is the top person or the top results or the top whatever, even though the results, like the baseline has been the same. It comes down to the wrapper or the execution, which is to me going to be more like design based or
mm.
probably more fine tuning, right? Of like the last mile stuff that you have to
Which
do.
means the industry leaders won't change in a
Yeah,
day,
exactly. Yeah, yeah, for a lot of them.
unless they
Yes,
somehow royally fuck up the AI part where like they don't emphasize it at all, and
yeah,
then there's room for some incumbent.
correct. So for any established industry, assuming that, these guys are jumping on the bandwagon, I think that will help them with their wrapper. But these things are a toss up, right? That could be basically mean, let's say there was I don't want to name drop, but like from what I understood, Crossbeam was our competitor like a while back because they were doing
Yeah.
really good partnerships, right? Like you would if we were to make Koopsay today, we would still understand that they're the competitor, but then Crossbeam would have to up their game and like actually continue holding down the fort, right? With new AI and new possibilities for partnership while we're doing that as well. That's the only way they can kill us, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
No,
But
I
I
think
don't yeah. It's very interesting how like everyone's still freaking out over it even though it's been like what, like couple months so far. I think we're just touching the surface because GPT-4 like is a multimodal language model, so that means that it actually can support like images and stuff like that too to
how helpful
understand. Yeah.
do you think this would have been if we were just doing our keywords, like the remember the Coop site keywords where you could
Mm.
find partners based.
100%. I literally, when you were discussing this, I was like, huh. And it seems to be like interesting. Like
So
there's a whole thing. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, actually, because I don't think I mentioned this in the last podcast. So
Yeah.
this guy reached out to me. He's a Russian dude based in Turkey, and now he moved to Georgia. And he was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I find your like Coop site project very interesting." Was all, and I was like, "Sure, if I can be helpful in any way, maybe share some of the context that we had over the course of building this." And
Yeah.
then basically, he told me that he was planning to build something similar, or he said that he finds a lot of value in working with corporates. He was mostly like doing hiring tech teams, assembling tech teams for projects. And it's like, oh yeah, I've seen this need for partnerships, and I've also like thought about VCs being more involved in terms of finding something strategic to invest in. But I was like, okay, like yeah, we tried, we failed. Here are the reasons why. And then I was hearing about all this ChatGPT stuff, and then the guy came back and he was like, "Oh, there's this group of people in Georgia that are building something on top of ChatGPT that is going to help find keywords, and they were planning to assemble it into like a Tinder kind of swiping app." And said, I instantly thought that this could be good for matching like corporates or something more in the corporate field. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that sounds really cool, because in my opinion, this was one of the very big like drawbacks of our company, was that, the algorithm didn't work as intended, I would say, at all.
Yeah.
So that was a big downside, and I feel like it could fix it right now. So I passed on some of the context that we had, and who knows? Maybe in 2-3 years, there's going to be some tech company that does that finds synergies through ChatGPT 10.
Oh my god.
Oh
The
my
fact that
gosh.
it's pretty much the same. So it's the same company as us, except they're being powered by ChatGPT, which is very. Oh my. I'll be honest. Like I don't know how I
They're
feel about
applying
that.
to
Like
500 startups in Georgia right now, because 500 startups, they came to Georgia. They have a accelerator there.
yeah.
And they're applying. So we'll see. You know,
Thing
whether they
is, guys, you got to remember, take a step back. The technology enables, but it's still, you have to be in with the squad. Like, if you want to do partnerships between two companies, you still need to be
Yeah.
like face to face with those two companies. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
also a big contention point, right? Like,
But does anyone have ChatGPT right now? I want to check something
yeah, I
out.
have it open. I have it open. Like, I
Because
can
you are
share
the
screen
classic
right now.
thing where like
Yeah.
let's like
Yeah.
type in some sort of
Oh,
partnership and see what Chat.
disabled screen share. So I need to, Errol, you need to enable it. No worries.
For some reason, okay.
We could search something up, like, you know, some example of a partnership that the ideal result was that we were gonna have some sort of text-based generation, like, of
Yeah.
results. Remember that? Like, that's
Yeah.
what we were looking for.
Yeah.
I feel like it could literally be made right now. Like, let's search something bizarre.
Okay, so when I already did a pre-search, but we can just do another one. I literally said, how can Uber and WeWork do a partnership?
You did
Right?
this
And
already.
like it gives you like given down specifics. The major thing that like I saw was just like using Uber to get to and from WeWork locations and meeting places when traveling for business. Like, that's already like infinitely better than like what we were shooting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's already great. Just that one, like what I'm highlighting there, you don't even need the rest. You just need that. And like, you're right, that's a partnership already. Right? Like, it's all right, whatever. We can do another
Oh
one,
my
but I
gosh.
think the one thing I would say, like the only downside here, if we were like, if it was technical, is like these are companies that are well known. If you're still doing like the startup realm, right? Like, what happens if you don't have either public data of like what these things are? You would still need to like have some hacky way to say, oh, this thing is like this company and this thing is like this company. Like it
But
was
that's
also like
less to
the
build
data,
on
right?
top. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
now you just need to build some sort of way to create like some sort of score of how matching it is to a well-known company to then give the results. But then the results themselves could be pretty in-depth. This is
Yeah.
Errol, what do you think?
You don't have to even like this. You don't have to attribute it to even a bigger company too. Like, what if you just describe, oh, there's a startup that does X, Y, and Z, and they are based in New York City, for example. There's another company that does this and this and this and this. Where can they partner up? I don't think you even need to attribute it to like a much larger company, but I mean, I don't know how good this is. Like, obviously, we're looking at it now, but
How about this? Search up how could Illama partner with DD, because like on the US companies, it for sure has a lot of data, but I'm not sure they have enough data.
What happens if it doesn't? Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, nope.
Get wrecked, my dudes. Delivery services are all integrated, so that makes sense. Loyalty programs, so you just get promo points for future food orders. Okay.
Well, whoa. Well, what I'm seeing already is that there is some overlapping.
Yeah,
between
there
this
is.
and then the other one too we did with WeWork and Uber, such as like loyalty programs and co-branded events. So it may be too general too. That can also be a concern.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also,
I
like,
would say
honestly,
that the text, right? Like the internal text, that's what you should read more than the general, like, oh, the 2-word thing here. It's too limited. It's not like perfect, but I think it, like, from a data scraping point of view or idea generation, like it just takes way shorter time to compute these potential keywords, right? Like, and they're legitimate. At least they make sense. At least they are viable, right?
I even remember the 4, like trying to go for like first, like in terms of the corporations, how could they collaborate? then like
Yeah.
co-marketing. We also wanted to segment it. You didn't ask it for that specifically, right? This is like just the
No,
raw
this is just,
response.
well, this was just some like thing I was looking at before, but I started here, right? I mistyped this, but then I just said like, just how can it do a partnership, right? That's like where we start. So no preemptive prompting or anything like that.
It's very useful just if you want to look at a bunch of companies at scale, like in this region. Let me just have like, as we're talking about, like a Tinder left and right swiping, and we just keep outputting those results. Because of course, like you can like think like in your head, like, okay, Uber and WeWork, for example, how can they partner up? And you could of course like get to the same result, but it's just much faster if you have a quick display that says this is specifically how you guys can do it. Do you want to like partner up? Do you want to chat with them or not? And then you can just keep doing it like at scale for a lot of companies. And that's a big value add, just so you don't have to go through the headache. And then obviously you can like go in and talk about like the more specific like financials, how you're gonna execute on it. However, the best partnership out of these companies: Google, Apple, Uber, Netflix, and Didi.
Really?
Apple could
Well,
Uber to integrate Apple Pay into Uber's app.
Interesting. I don't know if I agree with that, but if it generates something again, like in 2 seconds, like that's
Yeah.
to the
That's
point,
so
right?
good. That's so good. I feel like I'm like a
Disgusting.
Homo erectus that like lived before there was fire.
Yes, yes.
Like,
And now
what?
it's here, and I'm like, dude, I already became extinct. Like, what the fuck? You couldn't like make this 2018? Like, what the hell, man?
I really like how the structure of the like benefits are very very
Clear,
clean,
right?
because it
Yeah.
says like, if you actually look at it, it says like the first part is what they can actually do together, and then the last part for all three of them is how this can directly benefit them. Could increase the number of
Right.
users for both companies, could make it easier for riders to pay, increase the adoption of Apple Pay, to
Right.
enhance passenger experience. Like even in the last one too, like number 3 with Didi and Netflix, they specifically
Mhm.
added that on at the end. Like they didn't need to, but they specifically said enhancing the passenger experience too, which is kind of fascinating,
Right.
actually.
It's the
If
bottom line
anything-
value prop, right?
Yeah, this is the value.
If anything, this could be like a good way to get a post-mortem analysis of what actually killed Coopsite. Like if those guys succeed with their 500 startups thing, and then we know it was just the tech was behind. If they don't, then we know there wasn't a wider problem.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to see where those guys end up. Because most of the time when your startup fails, you just are left to wonder for the rest of your life what exactly it was. I feel like it was definitely both factors, but it just would be interesting to see how does this play out.
Yeah.
I think for the tech side, it has like been fixed, if we will, right? Like it has results that are decent enough to be like realistic. But I still think that, like, of course, partnerships and anything that requires two foreign parties meeting with each other, like that's more of a human thing, right? Like we could say, oh, this is definitely a value prop, and there's like a whole proposal on why this would work, right? Because you could probably do another like text generation. Okay, like what do you mean by getting more users, or like enhancing Apple Pay's experience or whatever? You know what I mean? Like you can make a whole like proposal probably from AI, but it doesn't matter if like these companies hate each other, right?
I can see that. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see, as you said, George, like if they're gonna succeed or not. Because on one hand, I'm kind of like, yeah, you guys go for it, do what we couldn't. But at the other hand, I'm like, fuck, like that could have been us.
Maybe it's a weekend
project,
project, guys. Zombie coop site for 2 days. See what you can do.
What's it called? Coder.
Grind with the API and just take what we had and just like stuff it back into our old program.
Yeah. See if it works. I mean, we still have the repo, right? We have all of the code still. So.
And the OpenAI API is like so minimal. Like you literally just put 2 lines of code and you put the prompt, and then it will generate the results, and then we just clean it up and then we just post it.
Yeah,
it's literally like one API.
Thomas, what was the name of what are they called? Those events where they like code for the whole night? that you
Oh,
organize
hackathons, you mean?
like hackathon, like
Hackathons?
a
Yeah, yeah.
24-hour site
Yeah,
hackathon.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
ChatGPT enabled hackathon.
Back
By the
from
way,
the dead.
those guys hosted the hackathon using ChatGPT, and apparently this was like one of the better ideas that they.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I'm like very, now that you kind of told us about this new project going on in Georgia. You said Georgia, right? Is where the matching, yeah. Now that you kind of told me this, I'm now thinking about it'll be really interesting to see the startups that come out of using ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
Using OpenAI now, because now like I feel like this new technology has come out, and it's like, okay, we have this new technology. Now, what can you do with it? And that's how a lot of innovation actually works, right? Like even if you just look at the computer too, like you have the mouse, your floppy disk, you have all these little pieces, and you have the tools, but now it's like, okay, what can you do once you have them, separate? You got to put them together and see now what can you empower? Can you empower businesses, consumers, whatever? So I'm like, I feel like the next like 2 years are going to be very interesting to see all these companies that are going to have like the tagline "powered by OpenAI" or whatever the fuck. And I don't know, maybe I want to experiment a little bit with it too, like play around with ChatGPT, see what else
Yeah.
that they're really good at that maybe no one else is building a business around, and just kind of making a wrapper around it. Have a container of just like making the results go to, the API, display it nicely, nice UX, UI. I mean, that doesn't seem too difficult of a business to make.
From a background point of view, guys, just so you know, like another thing that happened like 1.5 weeks ago is that the original API that's for GPT is like GPT 3.5, and there's actually different
Sounds fun.
models that they use. So the highest level model was called Da Vinci. And Da Vinci costs around like 2 cents per 1,000 tokens. Tokens you can just kind of construct down to like words. So like for 1,000 words, it's 2 cents. That might sound like decent, but if you do a lot of like search queries, like the queries that you actually type in as well, those are considered tokens. So like it adds up over time, right? Crazy thing though is that the new model for ChatGPT, because ChatGPT made their own API like public now, it's a turbo version of the Da Vinci model. So it's like a better, lighter version of this thing, but the cost is 0.002 cents per 1,000 tokens. So on a magnitude of 10x cheaper than what it was before.
Why? Are the results as not as good? What's the reason?
No, it's exactly the same as what you get from ChatGPT. So the results are running Da Vinci model basically, but now it's 10x cheaper because when it was released before for Da Vinci, that was like months ago. Now they've already made improvements and made it, specifically for ChatGPT, that I guess they allocated resources to make it cheaper for anyone to use.
And using like their value add from using it is so high. Honestly, like 2 cents is really not even that bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, 2 cents was already pretty good, but like now
like for the
it's like,
value, yeah.
way less than that. It's 0.002 cents.
Yeah.
It's almost like our idea of hiring some outsourced like an Indian company or somewhere in emerging markets to go through all of the potential partnerships and select keywords was already done, but even on a bigger scale by OpenAI with their like camps in Africa. And pretty much like that job has been completed at zero cost versus, we were estimating for it to cost like upwards of $100,000 for us.
Yeah. $100,000, I think you would have a long like millions a year right, to like spend all of that just for the prompt generation on this 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Crazy.
specifically for our case too, like because ChatGPT it covers our case for sure, as we can see.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I really want to now make some projects with ChatGPT. I'm thinking about it more and
Yeah, you
more.
should, Arrow. You should.
Pretty cool.
It's actually not that difficult to use.
But I haven't really heard of anything monetize that much.
Not yet.
Yeah. I would say it has monetization insofar as like consumer interest, but I wouldn't say it has sustained usage, right? Like churn might be high.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those AI Photoshop things, like once you have a photo of yourself from like a profile pic or whatever, like, or let's say you have like 20 of them, Like, will the 21st one really want you to coerce you to buy your next like month of subscription? Not so sure about that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. But I wonder if any other competition is gonna come out that can compete with ChatGPT. What do you guys think?
Bard AI maybe, but I think it would be
Mm,
hard. I think there are other LLM models that exist out
Mm.
there that are still like not either under development. They might just already be like ready, but they're still being fine tuned or they're still only for academic purposes. There is no reason though that it can't like go out into the public.
the
Mm.
way Google rushed Bart, and then everyone after them also rushed their like GPT competitor apps, you
Mhm.
could tell that, yeah, of course they were developing something, because they weren't just gonna like let this opportunity pass them by, but they were
Yeah.
blindsided by like how quickly ChatGPT became a thing. So I feel
Mm.
like it's
Yeah.
definitely, it has a big edge over everyone else. Especially it's like something that it takes time to become better at. Literally just takes time to train the algorithms. It's not like it's
Yeah.
like a social media app like Facebook, where the competitive advantage, the only competitive advantage is the network that it has.
What
Mm.
I think
That's a
would be
very good
really
point.
funny is to like be just a smart aleck and just like generate an AI that can do better prompt generation for the AI. Cause like that's like the arch right now. Like people don't know how to make a great like query to the AI to get the best results possible. What happens if you just have like a product to just like give AI a better like to just ask better questions so they can get better answers. So it's just AI stacked on top of AI and it just goes like fuller.
Mm.
Then you can make an AI to make, to ask better questions, to ask better answers, then make better questions, to then make better answers.
I think
That's
that's probably how they're evolving to.
yeah.
It's all
A
like folded in.
pre-parse,
Yeah. Yeah.
pre-parsing your data. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, listen, guys, we are running out of time here. I
Yep.
think it's a pretty solid chat,
Yep.
and I guess yeah, I will see you all, beautiful people, next week.
All
Unless we have
right.
any
I'll
last
follow
Cool.
words.
on how those guys, the Kupsai 2.0 is doing.
Oh
Yeah. Go
yes.
for it. Yeah. Love to. All
Keep
right.
us updated.
See you.
See you
See you
guys.
guys. Bye bye.